My name is Katya, and I'm doing my PhD in Comparative International and Development Education at Boise University of Toronto. My PhD research looks at an organization called the Regenerative Design Institute and how this organization is cultivating transformative learning and connecting personal transformation to the wider social, environmental, and spiritual transformation that's happening as a global society. It took me a really long time to find my PhD research topic. They say that that's the hardest part of the PhD journey, but for me it was 3 years almost that I would start in one direction and that would fall through, and then I started in another direction and didn't get the funding, and then in another direction, and the relationship wasn't quite right with the community, and so it was a really long process of, I think, really identifying what was the right topic for me and what I was going to be passionate about. And I went to California in October of 2010 and was going to the Bioneers Conference to try to connect with some of the organizations I thought I wanted to be researching. Some of the bigger, well-known organizations in the environmental, social, spiritual movement. And it just wasn't happening. I was trying to meet with different people and kind of hitting dead end after dead end. And finally I ended up having a conversation with someone from the Regenerative Design Institute, kind of coincidentally, and everything just felt like it aligned. Everything, in terms of what they were doing, it was nature-based, it was indigenous wisdom, it was transformative learning and connecting to the greater social transformation, and it just felt really right. So I made the appointment to go out there and meet with James and kind of check out RDI, see what it was all about. It was supposed to take me an hour, and as I was driving, it just was taking longer and longer, and I got lost. It was a foggy day, and so I'm driving on these winding roads and all these cliffs of Northern California, and as I was driving, and now it's hour two and a half, and I felt so lost. It just really felt symbolic of the entire PhD journey for me, and all of the twists and turns and not knowing where I was going and feeling like everything was really in a fog at that point. I felt like I had no idea what was going to come next and if I would even make it to my destination. But something in me told me I needed to keep going, keep driving. It was the sense that it was, sometimes you're going and you're trying to do something and you come up against difficulty or resistance, and it's a sign that you should turn around. And I think that's what I felt with different organizations and pioneers. But in this case, when I hit that resistance, it felt like actually it meant, this is worthwhile. This is something you should really persevere in and keep trying, and you're going to get there. So I kept going. And when I finally got there to RDI, I went up to the house and introduced myself, and James was very kind and said, "Hi, you're 2 hours late." And I said, "I know." And he said, "Well, I can still meet with you, but I need a half an hour. I'm on a phone call now." So I went back to my car. I was so exhausted from driving for 3 hours that I literally took a nap. I fell asleep, set my alarm for 30 minutes later. Went back to the house after my nap and was ready to meet with James, and he said, "Well, I need another half an hour. I'm not done with my call yet." So I went back to my car, and I had brought with me some sage that I use for smudging, and I brought my journal, a new journal actually that I hadn't started yet, and it felt like it was just the right moment. And so I found this really beautiful tree, and I went and sat on a log under the tree, and I cried. I just, it felt like, again, I just was so at a loss, and I did my smudge, and I said, a prayer to really make my PhD work of service, and that I just, in my heart, all I really wanted was for my PhD work to be serving the world, and really ask for assistance in that, and at the same time let go of my ideas of what it was going to look like and my expectations of kind of what I was supposed to be doing, and really opened myself up to whatever possibilities were available. sitting under the tree and taking my nap, and you know, 3 hours of getting there. You know, by this point I'd let go of the idea that I was going to get to my college reunion that night. And I walked up to James and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm a PhD student and I'm looking for examples of organizations that are helping to really bring forward an environmentally sustainable, socially just, spiritually fulfilling world." And the first thing he said to me was, "Well, I don't really like that word, sustainable." And I said, "Well, I don't either." And so we had this moment of connection, and then it really launched into a discussion about what does it mean to be, the word they use is regenerative, and so how do we really do environmental design in a way that's regenerative? And the same applies to how they're approaching transformative learning. And so they really bring together psychology and spirituality with permaculture design and nature awareness and indigenous wisdom and cultural diversity. And as he was speaking, I just listened for about 2 hours, and everything was just so resonant with my ideas and my interests and my passions, and I felt this real deep resonance. There was this moment in the conversation where James said, you know, everybody's out there talking about this idea, we're all connected, we're all one, but it's coming from this very ungrounded, disconnected sort of place. He said that the work that they're doing is really about bringing people into this embodied connection with the earth and, you know, getting your hands in the dirt and learning through permaculture design, and that as people begin to really connect with their natural environment, then this enables them to really do some of the emotional clearing and the spiritual transformation that arises through that natural connection. And then when you say we're all connected, then it's coming from this really rooted, grounded place of being in touch with the earth and being in touch with one another, and it's much more transformative on a deep, deep level. I think the other thing that really resonated for me was this idea that my PhD work could be something that was grounded and rooted, and, you know, so often in our intellectual work we're always in our heads and everyone's disconnected, and many people in academia are actually very unhappy. And the idea that I could be doing my PhD research in a way that was collaborative and in community and actually, you know, giving me skills and with my hands in the dirt, and it just felt so like a sigh of relief and this kind of sinking down and rooting, feeling this relief that the PhD would be a nurturing process for me, and then a contributing process in terms of what it was going to be producing in the end. As soon as I left RDI, I just had this really elated feeling of knowing that that was going to be my research topic, and it took me a while. It took me about a month of kind of going back and forth and, you know, looking back at my other ideas and that kind of go back and forth process we do of really honing in on what's true for us. But I just knew in that moment, and so all of the confusion and fog that I'd felt going into RDI was suddenly clear, and it was like this, you know, you have to reach the darkest moment of your depths before you can really see the light. And so now it's just continuing. I'm in conversation with them on a weekly basis, and I'm just really excited to get out there and start doing the research and imagining what it's going to look like, and I'll be there in 2 weeks. And so I feel like it's only just beginning. The seeds are just beginning to be planted.
How connected to the earth do you feel right now?
Very connected.
Now get up.